Right now in New Zealand, there's a huge debate going on over a new piece of legislation called the Regulatory Standards Bill. Now, this isn't just any other law. The idea here is to completely change how all other laws are made and judged, and as you can imagine, it's causing a major stir.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into what this bill actually is. Then, we'll look at the case for why it's needed in the first place. After that, we'll dig into the three big areas of pushback: the constitutional alarms being raised, the major conflict over Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and what it could all mean for everyday life.
And really, it all comes down to this one big question, right? Is it even possible for a single set of principles to be the ultimate judge of every single rule a government creates? That's what's at the heart of this whole thing.
So, let's get into it. What is this bill? Well, put simply, it's designed to create a whole new blueprint, a kind of master guide that all of New Zealand's regulations, both the new ones and the ones already on the books, would have to be measured against.
These are the core principles, laid out right there in Clause 8 of the bill. The idea is that they'd become the new gold standard, the official benchmark for what makes a regulation good or responsible. But why? Why this massive overhaul? Well, the people who support it say it's about fixing a pretty fundamental problem in the way government works right now.
The thinking goes like this, and supporters like Dr. Eric Crampton have been very clear on this point. When the government spends money, it gets a ton of scrutiny, because we can all see the cost to taxpayers. But with regulation, the costs are often hidden. They get passed on to regular people and businesses, which makes it a much easier and less accountable tool for governments to use. This bill is supposed to bring those hidden costs out into the open.
And what's really interesting here is that this isn't just about stopping bad laws before they happen. A big part of the argument is about looking backwards. It would create this ongoing, systematic way to review and maybe even get rid of old, clunky, or super expensive regulations that are already out there.
So for the people backing this, the vision is pretty clear: a government that's way more efficient and principled. The belief is that this whole framework would lead to smarter, less wasteful laws, which would give the country's productivity a boost and ultimately get better results for everyone.
But on the other side, wow, the pushback has been massive. We're talking a huge range of people: legal experts, academics, iwi, civil society groups, who see this bill not as an upgrade, but as a serious threat to New Zealand's democracy.
And just look at the sheer scale of the opposition here. The government asked for public feedback, and they got it. Over 22,000 responses. An incredible 88% of them said no. I mean, that's not just a small disagreement. That is a landslide rejection from the public.
And a huge reason for all that opposition comes down to this proposed review process. Critics say it puts a ton of power into the hands of just one minister and a small, unelected board that the minister gets to appoint. They see it as a major shift of power away from elected officials.
And some critics, like Andrew Ecclestone, they don't pull any punches. He flat out called the proposed board a nexus for corruption. And this isn't just a fringe concern. New Zealand's own security services have reportedly warned that a board like this could be targeted by foreign interference and might stop good policy from even being proposed.
And that really gets to the heart of it for a lot of opponents, this deep constitutional change. They see it as a power grab. As one person put it, it's using authoritarian means for achieving libertarian goals. Basically, moving power and accountability away from Parliament and the courts, where it's supposed to be.
Okay, and that leads us right into another huge point of conflict: the fact that the bill is completely silent on Te Tiriti o Waitangi, New Zealand's founding document.
For so many people who submitted feedback, this wasn't just some small detail they missed. Like Annie Makarau McCleary says here, the silence is the problem. The argument is that you can't just write a new rulebook for the country and leave out its founding partnership agreement. That silence speaks volumes.
And leaders like Corey Hebard take that even further. They argue this is a deliberate political move to push Māori rights to the side and replace them with these principles of economic efficiency. The fear is that it could undo decades of progress on treaty settlements and weaken cultural protections like rāhui.
So the message we're hearing from Maori law societies, iwi leaders, and community groups is basically the same. They're saying this bill tries to force a single, monocultural view on everyone,
putting economic individualism above the constitutional partnership that the Crown is obligated to uphold.
And the worries don't stop with these big, high-level ideas. They get really practical really fast. Submitters from all corners of society are deeply worried about what this bill could actually mean for their daily lives.
This table really gives you a sense of just how wide-ranging these fears are. You've got health groups worried it'll make it harder to regulate things like tobacco and alcohol, environmentalists who fear it will gut protections, disability advocates saying it'll roll back hard-won rights, and unions warning it's a threat to the minimum wage and workplace safety. The concern is broad.
And these aren't just, vague fears. We're talking about real numbers. Take this one, $9.1 billion. That's the estimated cost of alcohol-related harm in New Zealand every single year. Groups fighting this harm say the bill's focus on private property rights would make it even tougher for local communities to protect themselves from this kind of massive, measurable damage.
And at the end of the day, it comes down to this core fear, which Keaton sums up so powerfully here. The worry is that this bill would create a system where profits are consistently prioritized over people's lives, their well-being, and the health of the environment.
So, when you strip it all away, you're left with this. This isn't just a technical argument about how to write laws. It's a fundamental clash of worldviews about what government is even for and what values should guide it.
So, we've unpacked the arguments on all sides. But as New Zealand grapples with this bill, the central question, the one that's left on the table, is this. In a democracy, when you're rewriting the basic rules of society, who should be the one holding the pen?